My name is David, Consulting Director, newly appointed within the last day, hence the title's wrong, at Thomsons Online Benefits, and I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Bean from Samsung to give you a bit of an insight into financial wellness and really to put the theory into practice. So in terms of the case for financial wellness, so we've heard a lot about the theory in terms of what we've been doing as an organisation as well. We've recently launched a white paper into the future of financial wellness to see where is all this noise coming from, is there a real need for employers and employees to really buy into financial wellness. And in terms of the 200 employers that we actually surveyed and the 500 employees, one of the key call-outs that we saw was that 65% of employees actually want some sort of financial wellness program from their employers. And there's a big disconnect between the demand from employees and actually what employers are currently providing. So you can see that only 7% of employers, certainly in the ones that we've surveyed, are actually providing some sort of financial wellness program for their employees. When we look at financial worries in terms of what causes stress in the UK, over 2 million working days are lost each year when it comes down to money worries. So you can start to see that when people are coming into the workplace and they've got worries on their mind, whether that's debt, whether that's making ends meet from month to month, you can see that actually there's a responsibility from both employers and from providers and advisors to make sure that there are fit-for-purpose financial wellness programs available. Some of the other insight that we saw was that there's a direct correlation between what employees want and also engagement. So we saw that 38% of employees who work for organisations with a financial education programme are actually very or extremely engaged in their organisation. And that was one of the key factors that when me and Joe sat down to look at financial wellness for Samsung that we actually looked at. And then finally, because there is so much noise around financial wellness, what we've seen is that 47% of UK employers are considering implementing some sort of financial wellness program into 2017. So from my point of view, and certainly with all of this noise around financial wellness, what we're seeing is that there is a lot of theory, and I admit I've just given you some of that theory around where the demand for financial wellness is coming from. But what we're not seeing too much of is actually solutions. So what can employers do? So a lot of the conversations that I'm having at the minute is, what are the solutions? How can we embed it? How can we fit it to our reward strategy? And luckily, I've got Joe here who's actually going to give some proof as to how you can actually do that. But just before I hand over to Joe, in terms of our relationship with Samsung and where we've come on that journey, I'm sure it will resonate with many of you in the audience in terms of we've been working together for just over 5 years now, and the initial sort of focus at that time was to implement technology for the first time, so to help drive engagement, to embed other benefits and pensions, and that journey has sort of come on a sort of 5-year journey, and where we're at now is actually Samsung are reviewing not only their financial wellness but also things like their health and mental wellness programs as well. So we're seeing there's certainly more stimulated demand around wellness programs, and I'm going to hand over to Joe who will talk to you a little bit about how Samsung have actually embedded this.
Afternoon everybody. I'm here, obviously David's covered a lot of pieces for the financial strategy piece there, but I just wanted to add how this links into our overall health and wellbeing proposition. This isn't just about money, it's not just about health, it's the overall and overarching concept of looking after our employees as best we can in the ways that are most suited to them. So we feel that it's better support, and there's lots of arguments about more productivity, all those sorts of things, but there are other things that we wanted to take into consideration. So this is just one part of what we do on our health and wellness campaign, but it is quite important that it links to our business strategy as a whole, it links to our products, but also how it links to our employees themselves and their own individual journeys. So the reason we've got integrated access to everything on here is that everything runs from our hub, if you like, which is the Thomson's Darwin software. We call it Highlights, so I'm probably going to call it Highlights more than Darwin, so apologies if you know it as Darwin, but it's our Highlights and we absolutely love our Highlights. And what this does is it gives our employees the one-stop access to pretty much everything they need, and lots of things run off that, and there's different benefit providers behind it. You can see here on the left, that's a total reward kind of landing page where people or our employees can land. It tells them when their window's going to open, and it also links them to our propositions of nudge, details we do on Money Month, and also opens up different things as well. So from this screen, our employees can navigate through one stop and single sign-on for most things, not all, but most of them, pretty much everything they need to get the bite-size information if they just want to look at something quickly, to make their benefit selections, or to access any of the portals that we offer. So the portals and things that we need to is we wanted to look at different ways of helping our different employees. We've got a lot of different people at Samsung. There's some older, younger, everywhere in between. So what we wanted to do was be able to give them access to tools that they might want to use in their own time with their families, or at different events that we hold. And one of these software pieces is called Nudge, and I don't know if all of you have heard of it, but it's a really highly tailored solution which employees can build to their own wants and needs, and it has quite a handy thing on it called People Like You. So you can set your own limits and your own dreams and goals, and it will actually nudge you at various times. So they're going to be pretty busy tomorrow because there's the budget is being released. It's going to be a big one. It's going to have loads of stuff on pensions and probably lots of other things that I don't even want to think about at the moment. But what it will do is mean that I don't have to worry about telling my employees if the tax allowance has changed, if their income tax rate might have changed, all those sorts of things, because Nudge does it for us. So what it does is you can store information on there. It's got cloud-based service, so a lot of our employees save their policy documents from their travel insurance on there, so they've got one place to access all that information through highlights. So it's really key to be able to tailor that to our employees in different ways, and we do lots of events with Nudge on the premises of our offices so that they can come in and find out about that, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So continuing on the theme of tailor advice, we've got Charles Cameron and Associates, who we use for our mortgage service. And to be honest, I was really sceptical about this when Thomsons brought it to us and said, oh, you need to try Charles Cameron. You know, they're really good. It's a good service for employees. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go first myself. Nothing better than a good word of mouth to say how good something is. And I sat down with them. I went with a really open mind, but thinking I'm just going to be sold to for half an hour, and I don't really need to know about mortgages, but a lot of our employees do. Half an hour later, I'd left with a new fixed rate that I was going to be doing. I was going to save £100 a month, and that they'd contacted me in a year when that fixed rate ran out so that we could look at the next thing. Now, they've got access to all the high street lenders. They've got access to not on the high street lenders. So what we find, and we thought, well, we'll do a day, we'll give it a try, we'll let 12 people come along and see what you think. Feedback's the best thing. That was a year and a half ago, and we're still filling a day a month with our employees wanting to come and find out about first-time mortgages, buy-to-let mortgages, investment properties, and properties abroad, but also just about how much they can borrow to come and find out that information. And one of the main points of feedback that we've had from our financial advice through Charles Cameron is that actually they felt that they could talk to them because it wasn't someone sitting in a high street bank just selling them those few small products. It actually gave them the information they needed to make an informed choice, how much they need to save for a deposit, all those kind of things in one stop. And it's all done in the office, so people don't have to trek out in lunch times and after work and before work and waste their Saturdays. It's all done in the office, and we've done it at all the different locations. So that's proved really popular in helping employees understand the massive mortgage market. So other integrated solutions that run from highlights, and we were one of the first companies to do this with a company called Nutmeg. So we worked with Thomsons in a very detailed way to set up something that our employees might want to save into. And we came up with the Nutmeg Corporate ISA, which really is all-round tailored investment for their ISA fund, or the allowance they're allowed to put in each year. But we have, and it's quite a detailed thing, so you'll be able to look at these slides a bit more when they send them out. But on the left-hand side, what we normally do with pensions, and I'm very passionate about pensions as well, much to the detriment of everyone else in my team who has a good laugh at me every time I talk about pensions, but they'll all thank me one day. So what we can do is, if at Samsung, if you put 4% into your pension, Samsung will put in 8.5%. It's pretty generous, right? It's really nice. Best way to save for life after work, as we call it, because retirement sounds a bit boring. So They might want to save for life after work, but they might not be ready to save for life after work. So what they can do is, if they're prepared to give 4%, we'll put 2% into their pension. Very important, they still save into a pension. We'll put 4% in. They can put 2% into their ISA, and we'll put 4% into their ISA. And what we found is that this helps our younger generations that are struggling with student debt, with, they want to save for a house deposit. They're not interested in pensions yet. They want to be living their life and doing the things they need to do to get ready for saving for their life after work. So what we've done is try to facilitate a way that they can save long term. This isn't a short term option, it's a stocks and shares ISA. But what it can do is mean that they can save for those big events like weddings, all those kind of things, and then come out the other end of that and start thinking, I need to save for my life after work. So it's completely auto-enrolment compliant because we're not dragging people away from the pension. People can choose to just put the most into their pension and still put £100 a month or whatever they want to into the Nutmeg ISA. And we've seen a really big take up with our emerging talent population, which is our graduate scheme, but also with our high earners that are being taxed at one end because they can't pay into their pension anymore. This might be the next best option for tax-free saving for them. So it's very important that we look at that. There's other things as well. I could stand here all day and talk about how much I love pensions and how important it is, but it's also about sharing the communications around that. And we do a once a year meeting on pension governance where we actually sit down with David. It's an enjoyable 3 hours and I look forward to it every year. But it's really important that it's not just me that sits in that room and finds that information. That's not going to help people when they're saving for their lives after work. So we'll look at the default strategy, we'll look at all of the different things that we need to. We can analyse and segment using our highlight system to find out who's paying the most in, who's not paying the most in, who's missing out on free money in their pension, how's the default fund doing, what do we need to do to be able to communicate to our employees for the next best thing for them. And then we spend a lot of time and activity talking to our employees about the results of that pension governance, how their default fund's doing, and hopefully creating that engagement. And we've got some stats later which hopefully show that that's working. We also use all of our other benefit providers. We get every single one of our benefit providers comes in at least once a year, no matter how big or small they are. They'll talk to our employees, they'll gauge interest, we'll do events. We did a money month activity for the month of October where we talk about pensions, but all other things money as well. I've got some comms which I'm going to show you very shortly. But it's our way of being able to communicate about all things money. It used to be pensions month, it's evolved into money month. It was an October Halloween themed one, so I actually stood there in a witch's hat for 3 hours in our atrium, giving people facts, handing out sweets and treats rather than tricks, and giving people useful information about nudge and things that they could use. It did get a lot of people coming over saying, why are you wearing the hat? But the fact that it was there meant that I could talk to them, so it really worked quite well. So I talked about comms. You can do all of those things, but if you don't tell your employees about them, then they're not going to know and they're not going to use them. So this is just examples of some of the comms that we did around Money Month, but we do quite a lot of posters. We have posters in the toilets, we use Blipper, we use text campaigns, we'll print onto napkins, simple messages about pensions. But we'll share that. So we had a Halloween-themed Money Month, as I said, and the middle poster there I absolutely love because we try and make something real that a lot of people do. So this time it was a pizza. Last year it was you could buy 4 cups of coffee instead of buying the coffee, you put it in your pension. It could be worth a lot more at retirement than actually the enjoyment that you might have had out of that pizza once a week. So what we're trying to do is just explain to people how important it is and to make it real life and understandable so they can think, do you know what, I might pass on a pizza this week, it could be worth an extra 30,000 at retirement for me in my pot. So we've got interactive PDFs, all the different things where people can click and find out about the pension freedoms. It's bite-sized, they can download it, they can save it to their device and just really enjoy, hopefully, what we're offering to them, but also to be able to give them the key takeaway information. One of the things we find about our employees is if you sit down and say, do you know what, we're going to do a presentation, it's going to give you 20 things you need to know, come along and spend an hour, the room would be empty. If we grab them for 2 minutes as they walk through to the restaurant for lunch, we've probably done more in that 2 minutes than we'd ever get anywhere else and through any other comms. So we do spend a lot of time talking face to face to our employees, but also using our technology to enable them to be able to access the information when they want to and when they need to and when it's most pertinent. So we also tried a text campaign, we tried a text survey, so we were asking people how financially savvy they think they are, how many years away they are from life after work, and then really just to go through all of that and just try and get to the bottom of what our employees want to know. And we spend a lot of time in focus groups and things like that. So we try different things. Some of them work, some of them don't, but I've shared a few things today about how they work, and I'm going to hand back over to David, who's just going to talk about some of the results.
Thank you, Jo. I think this ties in brilliantly with one of the questions that was asked first thing this morning in terms of, do we still need that sort of human interaction? So we've talked so much around data and technology. I think what Samsung have done so well is incorporated both. So they've not only had the sort of technology platform to actually leverage from and actually embed most of this, but you've got the likes of Jo and her team who actually are on the ground making sure that this actually works. So I suppose the acid test in terms of whether or not financial wellness is working at Samsung is looking at the results. So one of the things that myself and Jo, when we first looked at financial wellness, what we looked at was making sure that not only is the financial wellness program relevant, so it's going to get the attention of employees, but also to make sure that it's convenient, so people have got the ability to select benefits. So it might be that they're choosing their ISA at midnight, or they could be educating themselves around P60s at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever takes your fancy. But it's to make sure that people have got that interaction at a time that suits them. So when we looked at the MI around, okay, well, let's take mortgages, for example. In the first year, there's been over 180 individual one-to-one mortgage sessions, which has generated a mortgage value of just over £7.5 million, I think it is now. So employees were able to go onto the portal, empower themselves, learn about what the benefit was, make an appointment online, and then could go and see the whites of the mortgage advisor's eyes in terms of trying to make sure that they get the best rates and save themselves money. From a financial education point of view, over 85% of employees have had unique logins on the Nudge platform. So it's so straightforward and easy to embed. It's just a single sign-on link through to the Nudge platform. And actually, as I say, over 850 people now have logged in. Over 7,500 pages have been viewed. So people are taking the time out to actually empower themselves and learn. The top 3 learnings were P60, understanding what a P60 is, the March budget, and then also will writing. So it's really relevant stuff to individuals and so easy to implement. From a nutmeg point of view, I think, well, certainly working with Samsung, it's probably one of the only times I've seen this whereby there has been that sort of split between the pension and the ISA in terms of employees making a choice where that money goes. But we've had over 50 people join the Nutmeg ISA within the first window. Average contributions are about £230 a month. So again, some real empowering results there. And then finally, from a pensions point of view, I could stand here and say that there's 95% take-up of the pension. With auto-enrollment, that doesn't sound that impressive. But actually, when you drill down and look at the data, over 87% of people are now maxing out the employer contributions. So again, it supports what Anne was saying in the previous session. If you can educate and go out and talk to people and try and nudge them, they will make active choices. And not only that, we've got over 50% of people now making double-digit personal contributions. So there's some significant work happened on the pension scheme, and people are really feeling the benefits of that now. So I do see this as still quite an embryonic market, and I'm sure many of you have had conversations with different providers around financial wellness, and hopefully this will continue to grow, and there'll be more choice out there for employers like yourselves to be able to embed proper financial wellness. But the results are there. It's worked brilliantly for Samsung. Jo's feeling the benefits of it and probably makes your day-to-day working life that bit more pleasurable. But ultimately, there's a proper financial wellness program there, and that's been evidenced by the awards which Samsung have rightly won when it comes to engagement with employees. So, from my point of view, we can talk about the theory of financial wellness all we want, but it's really important to make sure that the practical solutions are there and that employers like yourselves can actually see how you can embed this into your own technology solutions.
That's fantastic. Many thanks
Thank
indeed,
you.
David and Jo, for that. Thank you.